For our third breakdown, I'm going to show you one of my beats, and this one's pretty cool because I can actually show you the back end, and I can show you exactly how the stuff that I'm saying, how it like reflects in your analytics, meaning that like out of the 61,000 people that watch this video, how 61,000 of them had a similar response, and it's predictable, and you can do that through the way that you structure your music. And a couple other things about this one is it's cool because it's a different approach than the first two. They've both been sampling based off the first one was splice samples, the second one was a real sample, and this one is a sample I wrote. And so it's a new way of accomplishing the same goals. And so now we'll have 3 different ways that allow you to do YouTube friendly music and BeatStars friendly music that make sales. So I'll do the same thing for this one. And this one's interesting too because it did pretty good. I'm happy with 60,000 views. I'll take that any day of the week. But there's also, as I was going through and kind of assessing it, I realized there's opportunity for improvements as well. And I do think that like if I would have made these like 5 to 10% improvements, like we're looking at a couple 100,000 view beat and not a 60,000 view beat. So I'm going to kind of be beating myself up as I break it down. I'll show you guys what I did right and what I did wrong and what I could have done better. Also, obviously, I have the project files for this, so it's not even an exact remake. It is the exact beat. And so I will include all the files for this beat in the description as well, so you guys can check it out. Let's play it and first run through bird's eye view of everything, and we'll start there, and then we'll get into the more in-depth breakdowns. What I like about this is like busy intro, ear catching, and there's a way that I drop it to make it simpler for artists. So it's like I have the ear catching part and the simplicity as well. And also I have it set up so that there's 8 bars of intro. This is another part of the intro, but it's like it's continuing to build throughout. But nothing has repeated. There's been a new element every single time. Multiple new elements. It's kind of like an anti-drop. But what I do is I filter out all the high end. And I do this in the sample because I'm planning for this. When I'm making the sample, I'm planning for it to be flipped. And so take out all that high end so that the artist has space. And so I got to 112 until the real drop happened. You can see that I got everyone to wait this long. And so you need to be careful with this. Do not abuse it. Artists are not going to like it. It's going to affect sales. I even think I probably have some negative comments. Been writing to this. Still writing. Nice. I wish it would have heard the horns. I agree. So it's like, there's a comment about the long intro. So it's like, be careful with those. It gets you more views, but like, make sure it's like the beat switches is don't abuse it. Make sure the intros are worth it. Like put time and effort into it. Where it's like, okay, it was long, but I was glad I listened to it. So now we have it filtered, super rappable, simple drums. And so far, there's been no, like we're a minute 43 in and nothing has repeated. Like there's been no loops, nothing. If you heard like a part again, it's like, it's been modified and it's changed. And it's like in a different context. So maybe you heard it with these other drums, but now you hear it with the trap drum. So, and for the category and genre of this, it's like a Drake, Kanye West, gospel, R&B influenced hip hop beat. Modern though, like it's real easy to be cheesy with that stuff, but when you nail it, it's one of the dopest styles. But it's like it's somewhat difficult to pull off music theory wise, which I'll show you all that. So this is the first time like that there's been a loop, because you've heard this right here. And so this is where I think like artists are like, they're kind of waiting to see if there's going to be like a second drop that's like more interesting or a new element. And this is where I make the mistake. And I'm like, okay, Like right around 223, 224 is where I'd be like, they're gonna be like, okay, well, I've heard this now. It's just a loop. Like you can sense the loop in it now. And I think that bores people, and it makes perfect sense. Average view duration, 223. But you can also see like, where's 112? Yeah, I got 80% of people to listen to 112, like until the drop, and then they're like, then it's gonna gradually die off after that. But you can see that I hold people much longer than I normally hold people, and 66% viewed is really solid. But yeah, now this is just a loop of the first verse, so it's like that's the mistake I made, is I should have kept it evolving, and there was ways I could have done that. And now we're just on the outro, and it's just gonna gradually die off. So good stuff here, and some stuff that I would improve upon. So and of course, very solid idea in my opinion. I've gotten very good responses from this one, so it's like pretty objective. Like you can't argue it. Like the YouTube algorithm isn't gonna like gaslight me and tell me it's good. So and people aren't gonna like buy it because they want to be nice. So it's done all those things. So safe to say that like I accomplished what I set out to accomplish on this one for the most part, but I could have done it better, and it could have like done quadruple or triple. Yeah, and we can look at the stats: 61,000 views, 2.4 thousand hours of watch time, 162 subs. You can see it just kept people. I can't even compete with this with my normal beats because of the arrangement stuff. And a lot of this, like I said earlier, it comes from the sample. Like if you're making sample based stuff, you need to be thinking ahead of like, okay, how does this flip? Okay, do I have an A section? Do I have a B section? Do I have a hook vocal? Okay, could that be the intro? Okay, well, and is it rappable? What's like the simple rappable part that they're gonna have? Thinking about all that as I write the sample. Yeah, and I had help with vocalists and stuff, and we'll get into that. First, I'm gonna break down the beat. Like I export it, and then I'm going to show you the sample and how I did it. So now let's do a more in-depth breakdown where I'm going to really get into the music and stuff like that. We'll start with this, the intro. Shout out to Sarah Kennedy is the vocalist, Kroniak on the horns. We got that piano. Her lead vocal. Gospel harmonies on those horns. Dun 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 dun. Bum bum. Those are triads, but yeah. Okay, so loop. But that's a little different. So it's like a slight variation on the second half. Wait. Yeah, and then second half she's like dun. So then we bring in that synth bass. We're just following the root notes. And this is a good example of the root note. So it's like, this is a very common soulful gospel progression. It's like, it's a bunch of 2-5-1s loop. Basically, you start on the root. We're doing a 2-5-1 to land on that. So this is the 2 of the C. This is the 5 of the C. So 2-5-1. And then we want to get to that one, 2-5-1. And then we want to get there, 2-5-1. Just soulful chord to bring it back. And then this section on the music, the harmonies come in. Ooh. And then it's also her lead vocal changes and she goes into ad lib. So it's like she has a lead line here. And I gave her these instructions when I was giving her like guidelines to how to make this idea. We start with the lead, and then I was like, have a B section with harmonies and ad libs. And to be honest, what I could have done, I could have taken the ad libs out and then like put it there, or had the ad libs in the harmony and then just go into the harmony here. But filtering it kind of accomplishes that and then keeps a little bit of that. I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways that I could have done it. It didn't need to be structured this way. And I do think I could have had some improvement in the way that I talked about earlier. Like I could have reduced it more. So I could have taken, like, make each section simpler, but have a stronger evolution, if that makes sense. So like, yeah, just had like right here, just harmony. And then here, harmony and ad libs, like it would have made that moment stronger, and it would have made more contrast. And so, yeah, I could redo the beat and it would be stronger today. But I think I did enough right here that it's worth breaking down now. So, but the big contrast right here is like the horns are still there. The horns come out, but it's like the Drake. There's a plugin I'll show you called Decimor where you remove the top end frequencies. It's what 40 does all the time. It's the Drake effect. You could just say the underwater Drake effect. But yeah, that synth bass is new. And then on this section, we're gonna bring in these drums. Synth bass, and then it's also a different section, so quite a bit of contrast because like these drums are new, synth bass stays the same, still feels like it's building, but now these drums, and it's like you could start rapping or you could start like catching a vibe right here, but for retention it's hooking them until 113. So I'll show you the drums real quick. Yeah, this is the same as just with the filter and no horns. And I think there's a few synth elements that come in, and I'll show you that in the sample. So like a lot of this was pre-planned in the sample to give me like ways to do it. And in hindsight, I would have done it different, but I was kind of, the mistake I made here is like I was on a deadline. I'm like, I want to get it out. I need an upload. In reality, you're probably better off doing these things right. Even taking a break from it, even like setting it aside for a week, working on something else. I mean, this is like the constant struggles of a business of like, how do you make something great? I think you get more longevity. And so I would definitely want to keep this about the music, but I think like showing the fact that I'm thinking about all this stuff as I'm making it, and you have to. If you're treating this as a business, you really do have to. So you don't just make whatever you want to make, which is the common advice, which is so unhelpful. It's like nice to hear, but it's like, no, what's the real stuff that makes this stuff work? That's kind of how I prefer to look at it. So there's just things I could have done where I could have pushed it further and had this second half. Like, unfortunately, it's very obviously just like I took the easy way out and just did that. Like, there's probably no difference if I copy and paste, like, and it makes perfect sense. That's when I lost your average person, was at 223, and that's when they're like, yep, it's a loop. I know it. Nothing new here. And yeah, that's when you lose people, unfortunately. So, but the idea was strong enough to get them there. 223, that's a pretty good marker to get your average person when 60,000 people see it. So, but yeah, let me show you kind of go into the details a little bit of the drums. I have just an EQ filtering them. I think I tried Decimor as well. Very basic, very hip hop pattern. Boom. Yeah, a few velocity things. Like I have that one quieter than that one. Boom, pop, boom, 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 pop, pop. So, and then I have like, you can hear these hats in there. If I take the filter off, they're very robotic. I'm not even like a fan of them, but when the filter comes on, you can hear them in there. It's like a little texture, like right there. And it just like, I don't know. I think it probably makes a little difference. I mean, I could leave them out and it'd make no difference in the performance, but I like little details like that. They do add up. Bass line, just a respace, very standard. I think the harmonies maybe come out, or they're so filtered. Oh wait, no. Verse 1A is just this filtered. Actually, that's not true. I'll show you in the sample. It has like synth pads and stuff in the background, but it's that musical idea as far as the vocal, but no horns. Just because I want more space for the rapper. And then the drums are ridiculously simple. Like, they're just from the Boy Wonder Splice kit. Kick, clap, Pierre-Bourne clap, but everyone takes everyone's claps. It seems like they're also in the BWB kit, so I don't know where they initially came from, whether that was BWB or Pierre-Bourne. tap snare. That's from a Foreign Tech kit. I use it all the time. A Boy Wonder hat loop from a Splice pack. Just has a bounce to it. It's really simple. And then when I use the Kanye, the Moog bass here. I notice a lot of my best beats. There's just an interesting thing is like, so for some reason this one is like more rappable. That feels like a breakdown bass. I don't know what it is. It's just the vibe. This is a stronger, like, it's not so, it doesn't, I don't know how to explain it. It's wider. It's maybe not so strong and right up the middle. This one is more like in your face, kind of hits a little harder. Kanye, Mike Dean bass, like you can almost always use this, especially for like hip hop and soul. And R&B is for like a substitution for an 808. And I notice a lot of my best beats do have that. So I could have done an 808, but I just followed the chords with I didn't do anything fancy, just kept it simple. But I like the vibe of it. It's a very Kanye vibe. But you'll see that pop up over and over in like some of this soulful hip hop stuff. Father Stretch My Hands has that bass as well. So, and that's just a way of like, I've kind of been talking about like using principles of like, okay, Kanye can use this Moog bass instead of an 808. Okay, I can do that too. And it's like, that's how you learn from, but you're not you're not biting. It's like, Kanye's not the first to do that, but he's a fan of it. So it's like, and then there's also like this little transition, which I could have made like probably stronger. Like somehow I could have had like some sort of transition moment right there, maybe some like a reverse sound and going into it. But I just use this fill and this transition. It could have been stronger. Like in hindsight, I did this a year ago. Yeah, it was good enough, but I don't know. Like I really could have done 500,000 views, I think, with this beat if I would have done everything right. And this high retention style that I'm talking about is, I probably should have done that too. Like that's probably a stronger, because that would have been new. That's probably how I would have done it. And then it's going to make, because I gave up contrast right here. I think that would have been stronger is to remove that on that second half. We're going to save it that way. Because that would have been a new section too of just having that wide open. I wonder even if the bass I should have removed. There's something interesting there. I don't mind it on the whole section. I would have to think about that and A/B it a little bit. But then, yeah, and then that's when you get your loop where if I copy and paste this over, if I copy and paste all this over, it makes no difference. So that's where it could have been better. And then just on the outro, yeah, but it was good enough. Like it was like I earned a minute 13 of listening before the drop even hit. And so I probably earned until, well, I mean, you can just literally see the facts. Like, so a minute 13 is when the drop hits. And we kind of looked at this earlier, but you can see, I bet it's right there. Yeah. See a minute 13, minute 14, you can see, okay, now it starts to decline a little bit more. And then you can see I didn't hold them very well right here. And I could have probably kept them going like that if you follow my cursor. But it's, like I said, it was good enough. Could have done better. But yeah, I think it's really simple stuff, especially like on the structure of the beat. Could have done it stronger in hindsight, but I'm going to show you the original sample and how I planned for this. So this might be a little like outside like the scope of this course. So if you're just a beat maker, watch this if you want. But if you want to see how I planned ahead for all this stuff to make high retention music and just the amount of thought that needs to go into this, we'll start with the music. Well, actually, no, I think it's better to go arrangement first, and then we'll get into the specifics of the music. So one thing I do with this is I do it at a slower BPM. And then, because I like that Kanye Chipmunk effect when you pitch it up. So I did this at 64 beats per minute and like a little slower. That's kind of how like a lot of the classic samples were discovered. I don't know if that's so much the sound anymore. A lot of times they like to pitch down, but there's still plenty of like people flipping old samples that they kind of flip it in a new way. Like sometimes Drake will pitch it down and it can sound more modern that way. Or like they have the female vocal be deeper and then kind of change the music around it. But yeah, we'll just give it like a listen and like arrangement breakdown. So shout out to Sarah, she killed it. You can see the two sections, straight lead right there. Horns. So I sent these horns to Kroniak and he stacked 3 of them. So it's actually a triad. Each note is a triad. Dun, 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 dun. So three notes there, 3 notes there, 3 notes there. But there's just her lead. Like, we don't expect anyone to rap over this because, like, she's in the way. In hindsight, I probably would have done, like, something like this for even, like, higher retention and, like... And had it start with this. Or this would have been the drop and I would have like maybe not had the horns. That could have been it too, because that could have been a drop. But yeah, there's just different ways I would have structured it. But this is how I did, so it is what it is. The harmonies on the second half, like you can rap over her ad libs like that, but that one's so fire. I mean, all these are. I'm not a bass player, but I just play each note like individually, like kind of easy. You just doom, 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 single note, so not too complicated. Chimes for effect. I took these sounds from my Prophet X, and they're cool. They kind of fill it out a little more though. In hindsight, I think I would have left them out because and the reason is for contrast. Because when I was like, oh, it fills it out like for rapping, but or just like have it fills it out, not for rapping, but just like to make it bigger. It would have made that drop more intense. I probably would have taken that out too, because it just like it didn't need to be there. Her vocals covers it. But yeah, this is like, oh, you can see her vocals in here. So A-B section. And this is the Drake effect right here, this decimar. It's different than EQing. It just sounds like, as 40 says, it like sounds worse. It sounds like dirtier. It's like it has a little distortion to it. It's just like missing these frequencies, and it sounds cooler in my opinion. So nothing too deep on that, but it's just like you throw on that. I probably like over EQ'd. Like, don't look too much into this stuff. Like, it's and high. Like, I probably would have done it simpler. Like, if I record my piano in a better room, I don't need to do that type of stuff. It's like, if you're doing any of this stuff, like, have a reason for it. I don't want to mislead people and think that it needs to be like this complicated. I think like this was me kind of figuring out and learning the whole process. It certainly doesn't need to be that complicated. So, or like all that many like stacks of layers or anything. It's like, it's just like have the core idea. If the core idea is not there, then it's not a good idea in the first place. So, just a synth bass like to hook people. And then what I did here too, it's like, this was for collabs. If someone hears this drop, like they'll be like, this is, honestly though, I should probably give the producers a little more credit that they would be like, oh yeah, I can flip that. So, but it does sound good like that too. So it's like, it kind of sparked some ideas, but I was like, wasn't sure. So then I just copied and pasted and took it out, like just did that section right there. And then I also have this lead just to fill out space. I do like that lead actually for the drop. I keep it really simple. It's basically following the top of the chords, the top note in the chord. It's just like, I'm just doing it by ear and filling out space. I'm not thinking too hard about it, like, and I'm trying to keep it simple. That lead, I think the lead, I'll say the lead has like meaningful impact. Because it feels like it's missing something without it. I could take out that lead and do the pad instead, but I like the lead better. Kind of adds a little more personality to it. But don't think too deep about stuff like that. But yeah, you can just see the, like, this whole time I'm like, okay, wide open, then filtered for contrast, have those horns be there. And then, so it's like, and then also like A section, B section, A section, B section filtered. A lot you can do with that. And then the rest I did with drums. So, yeah, I think could have been better, but I think there was enough there that was interesting. And I'm thinking of, as I'm writing these chords, I'm like, okay, this is cool. Where can I go next with this? Like, how can I turn this into something that has like more contrast, but also makes sense, but also has like stronger emotional impact, and also is like the roller coaster ride, and like has like the dips and the turns and the, oh, what is this? And like kind of evolves. Like basically like you're telling a story and these are your tools to do it. Does it go up? Does it build into this big section? Does it drop out into a really simple section? It's like, what story should you tell? And like, I hate to say that because that's like a little abstract, but that is kind of a way of thinking about it. But it's like, what principles can you use? What music production techniques can you use to, I think creating contrast is a more down to earth way to explain it. Like, what tools can you use to create contrast? How can you plan for flipping the beat? How can you, I mean, our goal is high retention music. So this throws in a lot of variables. And honestly, I generally recommend sampling because this takes up a ton of mental resources to like even write a good sample. So you have to do one or two things, in my opinion, at this point. Is like, write a great sample, take a break from it, regather like your mental resource, like your energy and stuff like that. And like, what's the term for it? Like when you listen to too much music and it all sounds like mush, your ears only have like a set amount of time. So I would like take a break and then like come back to it and then like maybe group stuff so that like you can have like this whole section and you could be like, put it and be like, okay, well, I want to move that section to that, so that you can like, you don't think too much about these individual elements. You can zoom out and have a bird's eye view, because that's how the consumer experiences it. So you don't want to get too caught up in this like weed. Like this EQ right here is like so in the details and like so not important. It does help, like all that adds up. So it's like, you don't want to be focusing on that stuff. You want to make sure that you have what matters first, and then you can fine tune these details later. So that's kind of all the stuff you think about. Like I said, I almost recommend not doing this, but if you can do this, dope, because like, yeah, it'll just take up so much mental resources that when you go and you have to think about how to flip it and how to arrange it for high retention music, like you're just going to want to be like, I've worked on this so long, let me just copy and paste. And I think that could have been a mistake that I did on this one. So those are all just things to think about. And but overall, this, like, I like this one because it shows proof that this stuff does work, and that if you execute it, and you can do it in a bunch of different ways, it's like these same principles. So yeah, I think that's kind of like the summary of that one, and that'll be it. And so on to the next one.